Here we go.
There we go. So recording. Perfect. Thank you. So welcome everyone to our Wellness Wednesday, which I'm very much looking forward to this one with the hormone reset with the beautiful Alison Clarke. I love the amount of knowledge and experience Alison brings to this topic. So it's an absolute privilege to be able to hear from you this evening. And I'm going to hand over to you. If you have anything that you would like to hear about specifically, please just pop it in the chat. And then either Alison will integrate that into what she's sharing or we'll cover it at the end in question time. But please handing over to you, Alison. Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Just to give a really quick kind of background story, very briefly, kind of give some context. I joined doTERRA because of my hormones. I struggled with hormones for most of my teenage to adult life. And I didn't know anything about essential oils. I didn't know anything about hormones. All I cared about was, am I getting pregnant? And the answer was no. And fertility treatment was failing. And I then was getting advice from a nutritional therapist. And she said, I think you need to look at the whole picture, the overall lifestyle. And she recommended that I start to use some essential oils to help me focus, to help me sleep better, to help me regulate my cycle. And at the beginning, I was like, this is just a smell in a bottle. I didn't understand. But it opened my world up to just the impact and the power of botanicals and plants and essential oils and nutrition. So today we're going to go through the hormone reset. So what do I mean when I say reset? Well, we can't just reset our hormones. It's never just like, there's never one benchmark. It's an ebb and a flow, whether that's through a season of life, whether that's through a menstrual cycle. There are so many different factors at play. When we think about hormones, typically speaking, a lot of women they'll automatically just go to the thoughts of reproductive hormones. But hormones basically are our body's chemistry, the communication channels within our body. So having an awareness of the lifestyle factors that we can bring in to help keep them in balance is one of the most empowering things that you can do. And oftentimes you'll notice that, when we're talking about different themes throughout this series, all these, Wellness Wednesdays, this is layered. So you'll see that there's so much overlap when we think about gut health, when we think about low toxin, when we think about emotions, when we think about metabolism. It all works intrinsically together. So my question to you is, have you ever felt like this woman when you think about your hormones? So have you ever felt overwhelmed? Whether that's, like for me, I'm 41 and I'm anticipating perimenopause and I'm like, oh God, you hear the different experiences and you're like, what's in store? So it might be a case as well that you're like, oh my gosh, my cycle is acting up, or, this pregnancy test doesn't give me the result that I want. It can feel very overwhelming. And typically speaking, the narrative around hormones can be always quite negative. Not always, but when it comes up in conversation, we talk about hormones when there's a problem. So if that is something that you can relate to, maybe pop a 1 in the comments, because I think we're all here because we want to reset in some way. So when I mentioned about resetting hormones, we can't rewind the clock. We can't just, completely reverse everything. But what we can do is we can reset the behaviors that influence our hormones in the everyday, because it's the compounded effects that influence us, or the compounded effects of all the day-to-day things that influence our hormones. So what we're going to cover tonight is a couple of different things. Number one, an understanding of why women's hormones are under more pressure than ever. We're going to look at the biggest disruptors that affect your energy, your cycle, your mood, and your overall level of happiness. When we think about the different essential oils that will come in and help us with all those different hormone offenders that I mentioned, and also a couple of my favorite essential oils when it comes to balancing your hormones, managing stress, and low toxin everyday lifestyle. So why is it important now to look after your hormones? Why is it such a conversation that we're having? And let's just kind of take a snapshot of the vibe of 2026. Well, there's a couple of things that are quite startling. And I think irrespective of whether you're here for you know, you were looking at essential oils for menopause or maybe fertility or maybe, you know, somebody with endometriosis or PCOS or whatever it is. These are some good kind of facts to just get grounded into as we, you know, as we go through the content tonight. But the first thing is that young girls are going through puberty earlier. We know that women are exposed to so many chemicals through just day-to-day self-care products, whether that's cosmetics, self-care, I won't call it self-care. I'll call it personal care. I don't think putting harmful chemicals on your body is self-care, but it gets marketed as that. You know, fragrance, things like that build up in our system. We know that adults and women are deficient of micronutrients. So when we think about all those nutrients that we need to have healthy hormones, like magnesium and B vitamins, for example, our food today in this day and age is so much more depleted than it was when our grandmothers were around. So, you know, the soil is different. There's so much more in our environment, and there's huge supply chains and, you know, all that. So we don't get the same nutrition that we did once upon a time. And then just the stats keep going up. So there's more PCOS, endometriosis, breast cancer. So we know all of that. We see it around us. And we also live in a culture where everyone is on, you know, like this here has a lot to answer for, because previously, you know, our grandmothers got to dial down and chill out and rest to a certain degree. Whereas it's a very much so different environment when people can access us in a second. So with all of these things at play, of course, it's going to impact all parts of us, including our hormones. So let's just take a recap. What do we know about essential oils? And let's just get a bit of understanding of how they actually help our hormones. So we know essential oils are natural compounds from plants. They're highly concentrated. They're 50 to 70 times more powerful than herbs. And remember, when we're thinking about essential oils, we're not just thinking about them, you know, for a physical thing, because even though we might reach for an oil to use topically on the body, so Tanya was asking about like using, you know, recommendations for something that might sound surface level, like hair, like when we're thinking about like hair growth, and somebody else was asking about essential oils for skin. Remember, we get those dual benefits. So let's go down through our three main lifestyle influencers when we think about our hormones. And I think this is a really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very empowering when you not just know the what, but you know the why. So I used to always, when I was trying to get pregnant, people would say, you just need to calm down and relax if you want to get pregnant. And I was like, okay, yeah, I've heard that a million times before. But it was only when I really started to understand the why, like how does that actually affect my hormones? That's when I started to really care about it. So I'm going to break that down now. So when we think about, I call it the cave woman effect. So I'm sure I might just open up the gallery here a little bit if I can, just to get some, I'm sure you can still see my screen, but makes it feel like, yeah, you can see. But when we think about hormones and when we think about stress, we have this response in our body. I'm sure you all have heard of it to some degree, but let's just break it down and see what the relationship is between stress and hormones. So we have this fight or flight response. And does anyone here, would anyone like to put it in the comments or unmic yourself or unmute yourself and just share what do you understand the fight or flight to be? Does anyone know what fight or flight actually means? No? Okay. But great, because I can go through it. We'll go through it. Okay. So we have been born with this amazing mechanism built into us. And it's the same mechanism that was there when we were cave women. And it is the fight or flight response. So basically we have a part of our brain. It's at the back of the back of our neck, the brain stem, and it's the exact same as it was when we were cave women. And the purpose of that, the number one function of our brain, when we think about it, is to keep us alive. So number one, our brain wants to keep us alive at all costs. It wants to keep us safe. So the purpose of this fight or flight response is that it's always looking out for danger. Always on the lookout. Okay, I need to keep you alive. I need to keep you safe. Where's the danger? So as soon as your brain perceives that there is a threat, or once it perceives that there's danger in the environment, it's going to instigate what's called the fight or flight response. So the fight means that um, as soon as you perceive a threat, your amygdala, so that part of your brain, is sending messages to the rest of your body saying you need to fight. There is a threat coming, or you need to flight. You need to run. Or the other part as well is the freeze part, but it's directing you to either fight or flight. But with that, it needs to send blood flow. So it's sending blood flow to where? It wants you to fight, so it's sending your blood flow to your arms. It wants you to be strong and to be able to pack a punch. And it wants you to be able to move really fast. So if you're stressed, you might find that you're moving around. You might start tidying up because you have all this excess circulation that's going to your extremities. So the thing is, you don't just magically create all this extra blood flow. It's taking it from somewhere else. And it's taking it from where? It's taking it from your core. So it's taking it from your womb, your ovaries. It's taking it from your gut. It's taking it from your digestion. So what we want to do is we want to get you back into rest and digest because we want to bring the circulation back in. So that's one thing. So you might think, okay, yeah, well, I've probably heard that before, but what has that actually got to do with hormones? So when your brain is instigating and seeing this stress, what's it doing? It's sending the hormone cortisol. Has everyone heard of the stress hormone cortisol? When your cortisol goes up, your progesterone goes down. So do we know, everyone here I'm sure has heard of progesterone. Progesterone is your progestation hormone. So that means that it's the hormone that you need to get pregnant. It's the hormone that helps to thicken out the lining of the womb. It's the hormone that helps you to support a pregnancy and gestate. So when you're stressed and you've got all this circulation going away and your cortisol is up, it's pushing down your progesterone. So you need that hormone progesterone to feel peace and quiet. It's the hormone that you need that makes you feel like more chilled. And when that progesterone is dropping, that's when you start to feel anxious. So it starts to create a loop effect. So what we want to do is we want to use our essential oils to help us feel calm. And the interesting thing is that, when we were cave women and we perceived danger and we perceived threat, it was, run from a saber-toothed tiger, fight a bear. It wasn't you're late for work and you're stuck in traffic and you've got a deadline and you're juggling all the balls. Your brain doesn't know the difference. It just thinks danger and it sends out the same response. And of course there's different levels of it, but even with kind of like low grade cortisol trickling in every day, it's pushing down your cortisol or your progesterone. You want to keep your progesterone as much of it as possible, especially if you're in menopause or in perimenopause and you're starting to feel those hormone swings come and you're starting to feel the hot flushes and you're starting to feel all those symptoms. Protect your progesterone by reducing down your stress as much as possible. And the beautiful thing is that we have what to help us manage our stress and help us feel calm.
Thanks for the wheels.
So let's go through some of my favorites. So if anyone wants to, I just left this here just to, if anyone wants to take a screen grab, just to remind you of, what the series of events that happens when you're in fight or flight. Okay, so let's go through some of my favorite essential oils for stress. Remember, this is not limited to me. I love co-creating different spaces and we all learn from each other. So absolutely in the chat, pop in your favorites and what you love to use. So lavender is amazing for cortisol. And there's research out there that shows that just breathing in lavender can reduce cortisol up to 30%. So it is a beautiful, beautiful oil to have, whether that's to help you have restorative sleep or just to have in your bag. Now, I particularly love lavender at nighttime. I kind of associate it with restful and I use it loads in skincare and things like that. But I love lavender. But in the day-to-day, I love frankincense. I don't know if anyone else uses frankincense for stress, but it's one that I always have with me. And the reason why I love frankincense for stress is that it's one that can really get in past that blood-brain barrier and really get in deep into the brain. A great way to use frankincense when we think about stress is just getting a drop of it and even putting it at the back of your neck when we think about that brain stem, so that amygdala part of your brain. Two beautiful blends as well. I love Balance. Balance is gorgeous. It's grounding. So we have different tree oils in there, including frankincense, and they help to activate that parasympathetic state, so that rest and digest. So if you feel like you're always in your head and your work and you can't get into your body, that is a beautiful oil to use at any time of the day. So whether that's in the morning, whether it's going to bed, whether it's just day to day on your wrists, it's a gorgeous base as well if you want to use Balance and then top it up with some wild orange to lift your mood. It's absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, Adaptive. Adaptive is kind of like, it's the best of everything when we think about the nervous system. So Adaptive has the oils in there like the lavender, and it's got wild orange. It's also got copaiba in there. And what I love about Adaptive is it is the most beautiful smelling blend, and it, you know, doubles up as a perfume, but it is excellent, particularly if you're experiencing burnout and low mood, because it has the citrus oils in there, which are very uplifting. So let's go on to our second hormone offender, which is sugar. So again, when we think about you know, well-being in general, we know that sugar is, you know, it's one of those things that are highly addictive. It's more addictive than cocaine. So it's, you know, it's in everything. It surrounds us. But let's think about like what the actual relationship of sugar is with it when it comes to your hormones. So when you think about sugar, or, you know, whether that's, you know, added sugar to a yogurt, if it's a chocolate biscuit, if it's cake, if it's even like when you're having a sandwich, because when we think about, you know, carbohydrates that are refined, they all convert down to sugar. But basically, sugar is a fuel that we use when we want a fast burning source of energy. So the example I have here is when you think about building a fire, what do you use to light a fire? You don't go straight in with coal or, you know, something that takes a long time to burn. You build up a fire, you light it with kindling, and then you might have small logs on top of that, and then you might have a bigger one, and then over time you might add in something that's, you know, that has a longer burn time. It's the same with food. So sugar is like the kindling, and it gets into our cells fast, and our body will burn sugar very, very quickly. But the thing about sugar is that when we consume it, and I'm sure everyone here knows this in some respects or like some degrees, but like when you have something that's sweet, whether that's like, I don't know, an Easter egg, we'll just say, and you're sitting down, you're having a cup of tea, and let's just say it's in an afternoon, you have the sugar high, but then you feel tired. So we all experience that sugar high and sugar crash. And when we have that sugar crash, our body produces cortisol again because it thinks that it's out of energy. So it produces cortisol, and remember, that pushes down our progesterone again. And we want to hang on to that progesterone. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when we have excess sugar that our body isn't using, we have to produce insulin, because insulin is what's going to help pack that excess sugar away if we're not getting the movement in that we need. But you know, something that a lot of women struggle with when we think about hormones is weight. And, you know, they're like, okay, I'm doing all the things. I'm, you know, like taking my steps. I'm, you know, tracking my macros and my calories, and I'm doing this, that, and the other, but I'm not losing weight, and I'm finding it really hard. And this is where the conversation of metabolism and hormones becomes interlinked. So remember, if you think back to that cave woman who's, you know, under pressure, and she's stressed out, and her cortisol is high, and her, you know, she's got all these different things happening. When your body is in that state and it needs to run, it needs a very, very fast source of fuel. So it will burn sugar. It won't burn fat. So, and tell me if I'm going too fast, or if I need to explain anything in a different way. But when we think about, you know, when we consume, or when we're in that state, our body will burn sugar. So if you find that you're, you know, a lot of women, for example, around the age of like 50, kind of just as you're coming into menopause, find that they're finding it, you know, that they're holding on excess weight, and it's harder to shift. But when we think about the relationship that has with stress, when you are in a stress state, your body will never burn fat. It will always burn sugar, because it wants to get you out of danger. So it wants to keep those fat stores because it thinks that there's something that's happening. Does that make sense? It's trying to prepare for like famine. So It's just something to bear that in mind. And as a result of that, when we think about energy, what's the relationship? Well, we have sugar highs, sugar crashes. And what happens with our energy as a result? We feel exhausted. We're going up and down, up and down, up and down. And as a result, we're floored at the end of the day. So a couple of suggestions when we think about our metabolism, because our metabolism is closely linked to our hormones, are these different oils. So number one is MetaPower. It's absolutely amazing for metabolic health and women's health in general. And it goes, like, it's just such an easy oil to use. You can either take it in a veggie cap, you can put it in water and you can drink it. It's got in there, it's got grapefruit and it's got lemon. It's got cinnamon bark. Cinnamon is excellent for regulating blood sugars. And peppermint and ginger as well. So peppermint and ginger as well, so good. We want to support the digestive system, because when we think about estrogen, if we have excess estrogen, we have to get that out of our body, and our digestive system is partly responsible for that. And then grapefruit as well on its own is absolutely gorgeous, and it helps those sugar cravings. So you can, pop them into veggie caps, as I said, same with the grapefruit. But what I love with grapefruit particularly is using it in like DIY serums. It's gorgeous topically on the skin. There's so many ways that you can get the benefit of using your grapefruit. So the third hormone offender is the synthetic estrogens that we're surrounded with. So I get this question a lot, especially when women are thinking about, they're like, okay, well, I'm on this journey now and I'm going into menopause and I'm thinking about like HRT and like understanding the relationship between essential oils and hormones. And a question that comes up quite regularly is, is like, our essential oils kind of like, HRT. So just to clarify that, if anyone is kind of confused about like what's the role that essential oils have when we think about hormones. Well, first of all, essential oils will never act as a hormone. But when we think about this topic of synthetic estrogen, so every cell in your body has different receptors. It's got like serotonin receptors, estrogen receptors, different receptors that are listening out for signals. And these receptors, these estrogen receptors, can get very confused when we have what are called xenoestrogens, so synthetic estrogen that's in our body. So for example, plastics and phthalates, all these different toxins that are in a lot of like commercial products. As we consume them and as we're exposed to them, they build up in our bloodstream, they build up in our body. And what happens is they can basically clog up our estrogen receptors. And as a result of that, our cells can't get the estrogen that our body might naturally be producing, and they're blocked and they can't get them in. So when we're thinking about using essential oils, we're using essential oils to clear all that junk out of our system. So yes, when I'm talking about like the citrus oils are beautiful and cleansing, but particularly we have amazing essential oils that are really, really supportive for balancing out that excess estrogen. So some of you might have heard of clary sage essential oil. Clary sage is one that is, it's recommended time and time again. For example, when it's kind of famous for when you're overdue and you're about to have a baby, and they say, use clary sage to bring on labor. But clary sage goes beyond all of that, because it's excellent for all types of hormonal imbalance, but particularly in balancing estrogen, because it acts in that way that it's removing all that excess estrogen out of the body. So when we think about the world that we live in now, when we think about women's health, there's a lot of excess estrogen. And when we have high estrogen, our body starts to get really, really confused, and we can have low progesterone. So we are always thinking about like that dance between the two of them. So what can we do about it? Well, we can support our liver and we can support our endocrine system, and you can reduce down the toxic load. And that's when I started in doTERRA. My very first month, I went straight on the loyalty rewards program, because I looked around me and I had a wake up call, and I was just like, oh my God, everything that I own is just, there's just so much fragrance, and there's phthalates and everything and all the harsh cleaners. And the beautiful thing about the loyalty rewards program is that it makes it so simple to ditch and switch, because there are so many categories. And, as we all know, or and maybe if you're new, maybe you don't, but when you're using the loyalty rewards program, as you're just switching your chemical cleaner for a natural cleaner, or whether that's I have the natural SPF there, the mineral SPF that doesn't have fragrance in it and it's mineral based, not only are you reducing down your toxic load, but you're using different essential oils and different products that are helping to cleanse out what's already there and already built up. So doTERRA make it really, really easy to do that. So a couple of my favorite oils for the liver and for detoxing in general are lemon. Lemon is amazing for your liver. It's such a good one for your liver. It's so easy to drink every day. Just pop a drop to 2 drops in your water in the morning. And it just helps give your liver that hug first thing in the morning. And also if you want to do more of a, have more of a routine, when we think about supporting your liver, geranium is an excellent essential oil, again, particularly for your liver. Your liver is responsible as well for converting hormones. So even putting geranium and some castor oil over your liver is a great way of being able to support that excess estrogen. And there's just one other essential oil blend that I have to mention here, and that's Clarke. So Clarke is where it all kind of comes together in one roller ball that I love. So Clarke has, it has the oils in there, as the name would suggest, calming. So it's got the clary sage, it's got the lavender, it's got Roman chamomile and bergamot and ylang ylang, all those beautiful oils that help keep you regulated, help your nervous system stay calm. But also it's got in there the oils like geranium. So when we think about the support that does and that gives to our liver, it also has carrot seed and fennel in there. And those oils are particularly great for the digestive system as well. So when we think about, removing and eliminating that excess estrogen that builds up, every essential oil in that blend has been developed to, really target a really healthy, balanced cycle. Even when we think about that Vitex in there, Vitex is to help the luteinizing hormones if you're trying to get pregnant. It's an excellent oil to help regulate that luteinizing hormone. So that's just to give you an idea. And that is a blend that you just swipe hip to hip. It's really simple to use. And I just pop that on in the mornings and in the evenings out of the shower. And I do that because I have PCOS. So it's a beautiful oil to use. And if you want, you could even have it. I know a lot of women wear it out in the go if they feel like they're getting agitated or aggravated or a hot flush. They can you can swipe it on your pulse points. And then doTERRA have this women's health kit. I think it's such a great, everyone can buy these separately, but they have it bundled together in a kit, which I think is really, really great. And it's heavily discounted then because it's in the kit. But phytoestrogen, so these are botanical plant-based supplements that contain flax and soya. And when I say soy, because some people, they get afraid when they hear soy, when they think about hormones. This is whole food. It's not like a heavily processed soy milk. So it's naturally so it naturally contains phytoestrogen. So they basically go in again and they help clear out any of that excess gunk that might be built up in the system, and they help to regulate both estrogen and progesterone. So if you feel like you're out of sync, it's an excellent supplement to use. If you feel like, I take this particularly, I'll go and I'll literally grab them if I feel like I'm enraged and I'm like, I don't know why I'm so angry. I just need something. And I'm like, okay, I'll take 2 of them. So it's an excellent, and if you're in the menopause or if you're in perimenopause, you can take this. It's a daily supplement to use if you're finding that you're really out of sync. And then of course we know that bone density changes as you're coming into those perimenopause, menopause years because of the declining estrogen. So being able to add in that extra nutrition, the magnesium, the calcium, the vitamin D3 to help with restore and keep those bones strong as you age. So
can I just add one thing, Alison, about the phytoestrogens actually that really helped me to understand how it worked. So the phytoestrogens, I love how Alison's described it, but what it's doing to clean out the gunk is that it's competing on those estrogen receptors with the xenoestrogens. So I always imagine the xenoestrogens are like the drama queens that come in and just wreak havoc, and they just really loud, like chaos, 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 and then off they go again. And the phytoestrogens are those consistent. Every single day they are there. They're quieter. They don't scream as loudly. They don't create chaos, and they are there all the time. And so that's what kind of, instead of having these like whoosh really high, whoosh really low, we get that more consistent level curve of estrogens and progesterone. And I love that we are in control of that. We don't get to control everything around us, that we can control a lot of the chemicals around us, but there's certain xenoestrogens that, like pollution and stuff or plastic packaging on our foods, it's hard to avoid now. So we do get to help with that one every day if we need to.
Yeah, I love that as well. Just even to give her a name, like she's the drama queen.
Yeah.
Estrogen. Like she's creating the drama. So so yeah, so they're just there really is a solution. So like, if you feel like your hormones are really, you're feeling hijacked and there's havoc happening, that trio together are like, it's absolutely excellent. And the fact that these are whole food, your body can actually absorb it. It's bioavailable. It's not like a synthetic vitamin that's going in that your body's gonna, just flush out. So that, I think that's us. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop my share, and I don't know if there's a few chats. Let me see all the ones for the crazy Barbie. Let me see. Okay, I'm glad that the progesterone, that's you, Lindsay, that progesterone description made sense.
So I'm just going to, if it's okay, to end the recording, and then we're going to answer any extra questions that you have. But thank you so much for that beautiful explanation of all the ways to support and who the biggest offenders to look out for. That was, really lovely and simple and very practical. So thank you very much, Alison.
No problem.
And so if you're all right to just end the recording, and then we'll answer any other questions that you have.
Let me see here.